Do you want to stay more focused on the right goals in your life, or even just figure out what the right goals are for you? Do you want clarity? Do you want better work-life balance? Well, you're in the right place. Welcome to Success Through Failure.
Welcome to the Success Through Failure podcast, the show that reveals failure as your path to success. You'll listen to intriguing interviews with some of the most successful people on the planet and learn how their failures became a launchpad for success and how yours can too. Here's your host, former Division I All-American wrestler, former Division I head coach, speaker, and personal coach, Jim Harshaw.
Welcome to another episode of Success Through Failure. Today, I bring you myself, just little old Jim, me and my microphone, sitting in a hotel room in Fort Lauderdale, Florida right now. And tomorrow, my Wahoos, the Cavaliers, University of Virginia football team, take on the second-ranked Miami Hurricanes. I'm talking to you, and you're in the future, so you know the outcome of the game. I don't know the outcome of the game yet, but my prediction is, I hate to pick against my Cavaliers, but I don't think we can win this one. I think we can win this one, I should say, but it's going to be a hard one, and it's going to be a letdown game for Miami, but they're going to pull away at the end and win it. And I think it's going to be a good game, though, and a good showing for the Cavaliers. So you know exactly what happened. I don't, because I'm talking to you in the future, which is kind of weird. So, but I've got a few minutes here, and I've wanted to get this podcast out to you because this has been on my mind for a while, and I really haven't had time to gather my thoughts around this and crystallize it into a message that you can listen to on your time here on the podcast. And by the way, I'd like to know where you listen to the podcast at. So let me know. I'm curious. I don't know if people listen to this mostly when they're working out or if you're on your commute. So why don't you shoot me, if you think about it, just shoot me a tweet. You can tweet or on email, jim@jimharshawjr.com, Twitter, just @JimHarshaw. Either one of those is fine. I'd be curious to know where you listen to this at. So if you shoot me a tweet, you can hashtag it also with STF podcast. So hashtag STF for Success Through Failure podcast. Let me know where you listen to this at. I know I have a lot of former athletes, probably mostly men former athletes who listen to this. That's kind of my target market, although there are a lot of other people who also listen to this. But so you may be working out right now. You may be on your commute. You may be doing who knows what. So let me know. Curious. But the title of today's episode is this. It's Focus, Clarity, and Inspired Action. A system for getting there, wherever there is for you, right? It's that focus. How do you get that focus that you want to have so you can avoid distractions? How do you get the clarity so that you know what's next? What's the next step for you? And how do you stop working and actually do inspired work, inspired action? You know, this podcast is inspired action for me. I've got a job where I travel a lot for work. I've got 4 kids. I'm a busy person, like you. But this is inspired action for me. I have never been a morning person, but I love waking up early so I can work on my podcast and get this out to you. And I find little nooks and crannies in my day and my time where I can work on this stuff and get it to you. And I want to help you get there too. That's my mission, is to help you find inspired action. It's called Success Through Failure, and because we've all failed. Like we all have failed. It's in a lot of different areas of our life. And sometimes it's outright failure, but other times it's more subtle, right? It's more of these little failures, these things where we try something a little bit, we kind of dip our toe in the water and we fail or we kind of get stung and we pull our toe out and we go, maybe that's not for me. Maybe I shouldn't try that. Maybe I shouldn't push anymore because, that took a lot of work, a lot of effort, but I failed. So I guess I'm just not good at it, right? That's the kind of stuff that really sucks us back into the average. And I'm talking about breaking through the average that's all around you, because you have dreams for your life. You have hopes, you have dreams, you have wishes of that there, wherever there is for you. Maybe 30 pounds less, that may be fixing your marriage. That may be doubling your salary. That may be living in a different place. That may be whatever that there is for you. You have that. And sometimes it seems further away than ever. It's something that you've wanted to attain, but sometimes we try, we put effort into it, and it just doesn't seem to get any closer. But how do we get the focus that we need so we can avoid distractions, stay focused, stay locked in, be consistent to get there? How do we get the clarity that we need, the clarity and next steps, and clarity in knowing that I'm on my path to getting to where I want to be? And third, how do we stop working and grinding and take inspired action? Well, that's what I'm going to share with you is a system for that. And if you hear that, I don't know if you hear that in the background or not. This is a pretty good microphone, so maybe you didn't, but a helicopter just flew. I've got my door open and the breeze blowing in off the beach, and the helicopter just flew over. So sorry if you heard some background noise, but I'm going to leave this window open because it's freaking awesome right now here. And so I'm not going to, I don't want you to feel, I don't want you to feel like your failure or your struggle is abnormal, because it's not. It's normal. I ask everybody on my podcast to share a time when they failed. And we, of course, you've heard my podcast if you've listened for any time. I have amazing people on, and they share times when they failed. Some of them, obviously share deep, dark times, like episode 109, Justin Wren. Man, what an amazing episode that was. But they share those deep, dark, hardcore failures. And I really wish people would share those, because those are the most powerful. Sometimes, people just share like some superficial failure, and I try to get them to go a little deeper. Some people are more comfortable with that than others, but it's normal. This struggle, this adversity, this thinking of, I can't do it because my story is different. My situation is different. I really want to normalize that, because your situation, it is unique. It is your situation, but so many other people have overcome bigger challenges. But your failures, your setbacks, your struggles, they're not your fault. They're not your fault. You haven't learned how to deal with them. You haven't learned, we're not taught a system for creating focus, creating clarity, and living a life of inspired action. We're not taught that, right? We're kind of funneled into this life where we're supposed to want the same things that everybody else wants: the house, the car, the kids, the family, the job, etc. And when you get there, I talked to so many guys. I talked to somebody yesterday, and he was in that situation. He's been very successful, and gosh, I talk to people all the time like this who are very successful, and they've got all these things. They've checked all of the boxes, but they're going like, what's next, right? They still haven't found that inspired action, even though they've checked a lot of the boxes that we're all trying to check, that everybody's trying to check. But you can get there. You can get there to this place of inspired action, this place where that you have in your mind. Close your mind and visualize what it is that you want, that ideal day, that ideal life. What is it? What does it look like? What does it feel like? Well, you can get there. And there's a system for getting there. And it's a simple system. And I teach this to people. And if you can apply these fundamentals, these 4 steps to your life, you're going to get to a point where you're more satisfied, you're more happy, you have more gratitude, you're more focused, you get more done, you have more clarity in your life, you're comfortable with where you're at in life and where you're going, and the actions that you take are inspired action. And you begin to say no to certain things and saying yes to the right things, because every time you say yes to one thing means you're inherently saying no to something else. If you say yes to volunteering for something, you're inherently saying no to volunteering for something else. That's just the way it works. Our time and our energy, they're finite. So it's a matter of identifying what are these things that we want. I'm going to share with you the system in a minute. And it's a system that you might think that, we all want to know, like, what do the uber ultra successful people know that I don't know? The people who are making tons of money, the people who are super fit, the people who they have a healthy relationship. What do they know that I don't know? What's the shortcut? What's the hack from getting from here where I'm at to where they're at and where I want to go. And if you've been suspicious that there is a system or a hack or something that they don't know, that you don't know that they do, well, you're right, because there is. And some people know the system and they live it and they work it. Some people don't know the system, but they're applying it anyway. It's just the paradigm that they grew up in. It's just the situation that they grew up in. And now some people know it and they can just make money like crazy, right? And they figured that part out and they apply that system because that's the paradigm they grew up in. Maybe they grew up in a family that made a lot of money, right? Or maybe they're just really healthy, right? But they don't have the money thing figured out. Or maybe they don't have the relationship thing figured out. Or maybe their relationships are really healthy and they're super happy there, which is awesome. And that's the number one area where you need to start with. But they just can't seem to get fit or they can't get out of their financial struggles. But there's a system, and some people apply that system one area of their life, and they don't know. But if you see people who are in alignment in all these areas in their life, then they most likely know the system, right? They probably have this system, and they're applying it to their life. And I'm going to give this to you. I'm going to share this with you today. And if you don't apply these things, you're going to get sucked back into the average. The average is all around you. I mean, that's why it's called the average. It's just you look outside your door and everything out there is the average, right? And if you don't make a conscious effort to rise above that, to have a healthier relationship than the average, to do more than the average person in your relationships, to do more than the average in your health and wellness, to do more than the average in your finances, to do more than the average in fulfilling yourself and your own needs, if you don't make that conscious effort, that intentional effort to live that way, you're going to get sucked into the average. That's what this is all about. It's about having a shield, having a battle plan against everything else. I remember when I was a kid listening to teachers and coaches and public service announcements telling me that, like, if you have friends who are like offering you drugs or trying to get you to do things that are wrong and they want you to join them and they get upset at you when you don't join them or you don't take a hit off the pipe or whatever or drink alcohol with them. Like, I remember hearing that they were not your friends, right? They weren't good friends because they were trying to like suck you in and pull you back and weren't encouraging you and to do the things that you wanted to do and live the way you wanted to live. And nothing's changed. Like, you grow up and it's the same way. Like, are you surrounding yourself with people who encourage you, or are you surrounded by people who kind of suck you back and want to slow you down and don't want to see you succeed? And there's a lot of people out in the world like that. So it's you and me and the other people listening to this podcast against the average, right? Against those who don't want to live an inspired life and have the focus and have the clarity and get to the next level in all the right areas of their lives, right? And want success. However you define success. I'm not going to define success for you. And that's the wrong thing that a lot of the gurus and the coaches and whatnot out there, they try to define success in the way they want to define success and kind of the way society defines success. That's what's different about what I'm teaching and what I've taught the dozens and dozens of people that have come through my programs is your success is defined by you. And the reason so many people are unhappy and they come to me actually is because they feel out of balance in their life. When you feel out of balance, it's always because they're trying to live their life based on somebody else's values. Usually it's the media or the TV, what you're watching and what media is trying to force on you, or what's parked in your neighbor's driveway, or what you're seeing on Facebook. Those things aren't important. That's not what's important to you. That's what's important to somebody else. And maybe that's what they want to be important to you. But what's really important to you? And that's where this whole thing starts. That's where this system is. I'm going to take you through this 4-step system right now. And it's all based off of my personal story. And I was very, I was a successful by most measures. I was a very successful Division I athlete. I won 3 conference championships. I was a Division I All-American. It's statistically harder for a high school wrestler to become a Division I All-American than it is for a high school football player to make it to the pros. So I was, if I played football, theoretically, numbers wise, I would have made it to the NFL. And just to kind of put it in context, and I trained at the Olympic Training Center, and I was invited to be a resident athlete out there. I eventually went on to become the youngest Division I head coach in the country. And so I had a lot of success, right? And I was the guy who was always sort of the guy who could do it, right? I was the guy who could get over the hump, work hard, and be successful. And just kind of fast forward in my life, and I got out of coaching by choice, kind of wanted to live a more balanced life, live a life that was more in alignment with what was important to me. And because I kind of got sucked into to spending tons and tons of hours, and it just was, my life was out of balance already. So got out of that, started a couple of businesses, sold those, sold my first one, started another business, and that one failed. And I got to sort of the end of that business, had an investor, invested a lot of money, and got to a point where everything was kind of a mess in my life. I was in the worst physical shape of my life. I went from an elite athlete to the worst physical shape in my life. My marriage was not healthy. We were struggling at home. I was just too locked in and focused on my business, so I didn't have the balance there. Wasn't spending enough time with my kids, and we had debt up to our eyeballs. So our life in so many ways was just a mess. And I remember looking for jobs on Craigslist one night, because now my business failed, and I'm looking for jobs on Craigslist, and I'm like scrolling past jobs for unpaid internships and paper boys, and going like, man, how did I get here? I got 2 degrees from the #1 public school in the country and all this other success. And how did I get to this point? Right. And I remember closing my computer and trudging up the stairs, and Allie was already asleep. And sorry if you hear some sirens in the background. They got that going on down here too, apparently. So I laid down next to Allie, and I just staring at the dark, staring into the dark at the ceiling. And I'm going to close this door, actually. I don't know if you can hear those or not. Hold on. I'm not going to edit that out. I'm just going to leave it in because this is real stuff. And I remember just staring at the ceiling and thinking about this. I'm like, so I was successful as a wrestler, right? I was successful as an athlete. I dealt with failure. I dealt with struggle. I dealt with setback over and over and over. So if you were an athlete, which you probably were if you're listening to this, you dealt with it too. You dealt with, that's part of athletics. It's kind of you lose. That's part of it. Nobody goes undefeated for their entire career. Even Cael Sanderson was 159-0 as a wrestler, but he lost his redshirt year, and I thought, how do I recreate that success? How do I recreate that life where I can have focus, I can have clarity, and I can live with inspired action, not just action, but inspired action, right? The kind of action that wakes a college kid up at 6 o'clock in the morning and drove me. I got myself over to the basketball arena, grabbed a 45-pound plate, and started running up and down the stairs with the plate over my head. I did that a lot. I did a lot of painful, voluntary workouts early in the morning. That's inspired action. How do I get back to that point? Right now, I'm in my 30s, and like I said, my life's a mess. Financially, physically, relationally, my life's a mess. And it was like a camera lens, slowly coming into focus. And it hit me all these pieces of this puzzle that I'm going to share with you right now. And this is what came to me. When I was a wrestler, when I was a high performing athlete, I knew, number one, this is the first step, first of 4. I knew what was important to me. I knew the most important thing. I knew the value, the things that I valued most. And for me, it was, I wanted to be like the guys who were my mentors and my coaches, the people I aspired to be like. I wanted to be them, right? And I wanted to be respected and live that disciplined life and go on to be successful after wrestling. These guys, that's who I looked up to, and that's what I valued, that work ethic, that discipline, that toughness, that respect. And on top of that, step 2, is I built my goals on top of that. Like my goals inherently aligned with those things. And therefore, I was able to deal with struggle. I was able to deal with failure. I was able to deal with setback and push through and still achieve my goals. My goals were based on my values, not my dad's values, not my coach's values, not anybody else's values, but my own. And when you do that, when you base your goals on your own values, then you can deal with these hard things that come up with life, and you can remain focused. You can continue to have the clarity of what's next in your life. And you can live a life of inspired action if and only if you know what's most important to you. You do the work to identify your core values, and then you tether your goals to those core values. And if you're wondering how you figure out your core values, yeah, you can pick them out of the air. Go ahead and guess, and that's fine. It's kind of an okay place to start, but you got to start asking yourself questions like what would I do if I doubled my salary? If you could double if you went into work tomorrow and your boss said your salary is going to double your salary, what would you do? How does that change your life? If you logically thought about like, how am I going to spend this money? That's going to tell you a little bit about your values. Is it, are you going to invest it in your kid's education? That tells me a little bit about your values. Are you going to invest it into retirement? That tells me a little bit about maybe security. If you're going to invest it into an amazing experience with you and your wife, for the men listening, or you and your spouse, or you and your partner, then that tells me a little bit about the relationships that are important to you. But are you tethering your goals to that? Are you tying your goals to these things that you say that are important to you? Or are they tied to like what's important to your boss or society, or what you see on Facebook, or what your mom and dad raised you to think should have been important? You have to identify what's important to you. You can also ask yourself, what do I want people to say about me if I died today? My eulogy. What do you want people to say about you? What do you want them to say? Not what they would say right now, because sometimes that's not exactly what you would want them to say. Maybe it is. But there are probably people in your life who are like, man, I would want them to say this about me. And that starts, I help you identify your core values. Okay, so you can identify your core values. You tether them to your goals. Goals are step 2. In step 2, there are 4 areas of goals: relationships, self, health, and wealth. Okay, relationships is number 1. I have a goal compass, and I'm going to include the goal compass in the action plan for this episode, jimharshawjr.com/action. So jimharshawjr.com/action. I'm going to include the goals compass that I've developed. It's a graphic. You can print it out. You can hang it on your wall and keep this front and center. Keep it handy, because this goals compass will remind you what's most important. So if you look at a compass always points north, right? It's always going to align with north. In north, once you find out where north is, then you can get your bearings around all of your other directions, right? And on this goals compass, north is relationships. Once you identify your relationship goals, everything else can be identified around that, right? Don't start with your wealth goals. Don't start with your health goals. Don't start with any other goals. Start with relationships. That's the most important. Once you figure that out, everything else aligns around it. And they're all connected. And you'll see this on this graphic, how it represents that all these goals are connected. So once you set goals in all these 4 areas, you can set 1 to 2 goals, because, most research shows between 4 and 8 goals. Some say 6, some say 7, some say, 4, 3, whatever the case. So, pick like 1 to maybe 2 goals in each area. So you might have 6 or 7 goals. I have 7 right now for 2017. But pick your goals in these 4 areas. And once you do, you'll realize that they're all tied together. So if you have a relationship, if everything's based around your relationship goal, and boom, you get your salary is doubled, guess what? It's going to amplify your relationship goal. But if you set your wealth goal without a relationship goal and your relationships are broken, if you double your salary, your relationships are going to be more broken. They're just going to break down even faster. So same thing with your health and fitness. If you have health goals and you double your salary, your health goals it's gonna enhance them. And then self goals is the other area I talked about. And here's how you remember what self goals are. GIF. Okay. GIF is self goals. Growth, impact, fun. That's what I'm talking about with self goals. We are happier if we know that we're growing. Okay. So that's growth. Impact. That's important. You have to want to make an impact on the world, whether it's on the world, your little microcosm of your family, or maybe in your community, but that's impact. And then fun is just fun. What do you like to do for fun? For me, it's, mountain biking and whitewater kayaking. I haven't done that in a while, but whitewater kayaking, rock climbing, all these things, outdoor adventure type sports. That's fun for me. Spending time with my kids, like my family, my wife, like we actually do a lot of that stuff together. So those are self goals. Okay. So I encourage you, go to jimharshawjr.com/action, get the goals compass, and you can orient your life around this goal compass. Now here's step 3. When I was competing, when I was a wrestler, I had this environment around me, right? This environment of all these amazing people that were around me. Number one, I had a coach, right? I had a nutritionist. I had a sports strength and conditioning coach. I had a sports psychologist. I had athletic trainer. All these people, like tutors, academic tutors. All these people around me, the right people. And Jim Rohn, the famous speaker and author, said, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." But I don't think that's true, and I've said this before. But because if I was the average of the 5 people I spend the most time with, the average of 3 females in my home, and 2 young girls, 2 young boys, my kids, and then my wife is like a teenage girl. That's like the average of like 5 people I spend the most time with. So you're not the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. You are the sum of all of the 5 people you spend the most time with in the sum of the content that you allow into your mind and into your world. Okay. This is your environment, your whole environment. We're not just talking just about people, because sometimes you can't control that, right? Not even the 5 people, it's the 10 people, it's all the people in your life, right? But it's these things. And here's how you can remember this, how to create your environment of excellence. You need to know your maps, MAPS. You need to know your maps. Number 1, M, it stands for media. What's the media that you're allowing into your world, right? Are you listening to Mike and Mike, ESPN radio on the drive to work? Awesome. That's fun. I love to do that too. But guess what? I usually don't. I'm listening to the Bible, or I'm calling the success hotline. I'm saying my mantra. These are the things that I'm spending my time. This is the media that I'm allowing into my life. I don't really read the news that much. I know, I believe in knowing what's going on and being an educated citizen, but most of the crap you read in the news it's clickbait. They want you to click on stuff. They write these headlines. They put in stuff that's not even news that they just want you to read because you spend more time on their site and they get more advertising revenue. And it looks good it's not news, most of it. Some of it is. But anyway, so the first part of your environment of excellence is media. Second part is area, like your physical area. Like in my office, I have a standing desk. That helps me with my environment, helps me be more focused, helps me be more productive. In my physical environment, I have my wallet here right beside me. I have my goals written on the back of my business. Actually, the back of my business card has 4 areas for writing your top 4 goals. And I write those and I keep them in my wallet and they're a constant reminder. That's part of my area, my physical environment, right? It might be, it might be anything. It might be putting inspiring quotes on the wall. It might be cleaning up your desk, right? What's your physical environment like? And P, the next one, MAP. P is for people. Who are the people? We already talked about that in your life. And then S is for speech. It's the self-talk and they'll talk out loud. That's your maps. That's your environment of excellence. What are you saying to yourself? I talked about my mantra. I say my mantra on the way to work. And it improves me. It bumps me probably 2% or 3% every day. It takes me about 15 seconds, but it bumps my productivity, my mindset every day that I do it. And I did it when I was competing as an athlete, and I do it now. And so the first 3 steps that we talked about understanding your core values. And then with the second step, we talked about tethering your goals to your core values and the goals in the 4 areas. Number 3 is your environment of excellence. And number 4 is your plan for follow through. You have to have a plan for follow through. Everybody, no, I shouldn't say everybody. The few people who listen to this, who actually write down their goals, Most of them lose track of them. They put them on a shelf somewhere. They save the document on the computer, and they don't even remember what they are. I have people that go through Reveal Your Path who they write down their goals. They go through my program, and at the end, they're like, Jim, I don't even remember what my goals are. I'm like, okay, well, that's why we have the fourth step. Here we go. And we go through this step that I'm going to explain to you. Okay. You have to have this, you have to be able to memorize and not even memorize, like see this stuff on a regular basis. And when I was a wrestler, it was pretty easy because I had my coach who was like, I'll see you tomorrow at practice, Jim. If you lose a match today, I'll see you tomorrow morning at the team lift. I had somebody who kicking my rear end and making me be there. I was on scholarship. It was another sort of financial thing that made me follow up and have to be there. But in the real world, you can take your goals and you can. Here's what I do: I put them on a Google Doc. I take that hyperlink and I go to my online my electronic calendar. Open up a calendar item. I put it's called quick goals. QUIC, quick goals, and ... and I copy paste the link into the description. And once I set it to remind me once a month, the first Monday of every month, boom, my goals pop up. I have to review them, right? I just review them. And sometimes I'm updating deadlines, or I'm updating some of the obstacles that I might see, or I'm updating the people, organizations who can help me, etc. I'm just reviewing them. And then I also have them written down. Like I said, they're in my wallet. I also write my goals out several days a week, probably 2, 3, 4 times a week. I handwrite, sort of shorthand, my 7 goals. So that's it. Those are the 4 steps. So you've got to create these 4. And this is the secret. This is the system. You talk to people who do this. You talk to successful people who are successful in some area of their life. They're doing some version of this, whether they know it or not. And I've discovered this through certainly this clarity that came to me when I was laying in bed next to Allie and staring at the ceiling one evening. So I discovered it there, and I did a lot of research for years before I started presenting this to people. And I was like, I realized that this is what successful people have in their life. This is what I had in my life when I was uber successful as a wrestler, as an athlete, as a Division I athlete. And this is a system for success. It's proven. I've taught it. I've learned it from others. I've asked people questions, high performers and astronauts and New York Times bestselling authors and professional athletes, and they all have these pieces of the puzzle in place. If you've listened to my podcast for any length of time, you know what's required to make this happen. It's a productive pause. You have to get off the treadmill of life. You can't just stop this podcast and go back to the life you were living before. You have to stop and make a plan. And the productive pause is this. It's a short period of focused reflection around specific questions that leads to clarity of action and peace of mind. I'm going to give it to you again. A productive pause is a short period of focused reflection around specific questions that leads to clarity of action and peace of mind. I hope you take this to heart. I hope this all makes sense for you. Your dreams are still possible. And the reason you're not there yet is because you didn't know this system. It's a simple system. I've taught it to others. I've just taught it to you. High performers know this system. High performers apply this system. And if you don't apply this system, you're going to get sucked back into the average again. If you apply this system, things are going to change for you. You're going to get more focused. You're going to be able to stay focused, avoid distractions. You're going to have the clarity of discovering, of knowing what's next for you. And your action is going to become inspired action. This is a system for getting there. I hope you take action. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please share this with somebody who needs it. You know somebody else who needs this. Just click the share button. If you found this on Twitter or Facebook, if you found it on iTunes, if you're listening to it on your phone right now, if you're listening to it on iTunes on your iPhone, you can just click the 3 little dots, and it brings up a button at the bottom where you can share it with somebody through email or through sending a SMS, a text message, or Twitter or Facebook, etc. If you could just share it with one other person, just one person, you know, one person who needs this, and share this with them, and I hope it impacts their life as well. Thanks for listening, and as always, until next time, take the time to get clear on your goals and embrace failure as a stepping stone on your path to success.